Welcome back to the DWT. We have another wrestling video, and Netflix has released season 2 of WWE Unreal. Sometimes when the chef lets you into the kitchen to see what they're cooking, you might not like what you see. They've released season 2, we've gotten into the mix, and one of the things that I can point out is there are some huge discrepancies on how creative is being run backstage. Naturally, everyone's going to attack Triple H because he is the head of everything creative. But when you look at what's happening backstage, the suggestions happening backstage, you can see they don't have a full grasp on what to do. Let me just show you something that I see.
Tiffany Stratton, right? The flip of that is, okay, so play it out. Put it on Chelsea. And she works with
the same girls.
Yeah, there's no
I understand. I don't know.
Oh, you didn't know?
Making a suggestion like that during a creative meeting and you don't have an answer for a simple rebuttal is no way to go. You need to have your who, what, where, when, and how so you can tie everything together. You're looking at a show that has long-term storytelling. Wrestling is something where you can call back something from 2-3 years ago, even 10 years ago if you want to. But you have to make sure you have that information. So you guys are just grabbing names out of the hat and say, oh, let's do this. But then you have a whole bunch of other people on the roster not being used. Where's Rusev? Where are the Street Profits? Where are the Motor City Machine Guns? Where are these guys? All these people who actually have contracts and can be contributing to the roster in any way, shape, or form, they're not being used. But yet still they can throw out names like this. Again, I have nothing against Chelsea Green. She's very entertaining. She does get a lot of TV time, but they also haven't done anything to build that women's division. You need to figure that out. They absolutely need to figure that out because nothing is really popping there. So when I also look at the core group there, it lacks diversity. I started doing as much Googling as I can, looking into everyone's age. We're looking at 56, 56, 60. We have guys in the higher age echelon, and they're not resonating with their core audience. We need to get people who are slightly younger onto the creative team. I'm not talking about super young, but I'm talking about around the area of late 30s to early to mid 40s because they would have seen the product of how they would have understood it growing up as children. And as an adult, you could see what's happening. I feel like in order to really get into the mix, you need to know what's happening in current events. So who's popping? Why do we like Trick Williams? Why do we like Carmelo Hayes? Why do we like a Jade Cargill? Where I'm not seeing that in the writer's room. Why would we like Montez Ford and the Street Profits? Angelo Dawkins? Why would we like them? And actually, how would you even write for them? None of these guys culturally look like they understand what's happening there. That's why there's a big divide between what's happening in NXT versus the main roster. NXT has all the young guns. We're seeing a lot more black competitors, and they're able to riff off of each other because it looks like they have a bit more freedom to be who they want to be. But once you get to the main roster, a lot of your creativity gets stifled because it goes to creative. Look at creative. I'm seeing a whole bunch of white old dudes. I think I see maybe 2 black guys on there, but the black guys that I'm seeing don't seem like the guys that were popping or the popular kid or someone who had good influence because they had that magnetic energy, like someone like The Rock. I don't see any of that. I don't see any of those people being polarizing to be like, all right, that's the way to go. That's the look. A lot of this stuff really comes down to luck. Even back in the day, Vince McMahon, the way Vince McMahon was booking The Rock at the time was super poorly. He wanted him as Rocky Maivia. He wanted him to pay homage to his father and grandfather, the High Chief Peter Maivia. And it wasn't able to show his personality. So the way he wrote him was to fail, essentially. People were booing him, saying, die, Rocky, die. He's already gone through that. So when you look at that and The Rock said, okay, give me 2 minutes on the mic, show his personality, instantly changed. Charisma is something that you have. And in order for you to push a talent or have writers write for people to make sure they're on TV, they need to understand the culture. There is no culture back there. I'm just seeing a whole bunch of white guys. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not trying to make this a black or white thing. But in order for you to understand, in order for you to resonate with the slang, the behavior, the charisma, you have to be cut from that cloth a little bit. And it's the same thing with Bobby Lashley. When he was on the roster, he was just as much of a beast like Brock Lesnar, but they weren't utilizing him in the same way. They're not cut from that same cloth to understand, okay, this is what we're going to do with him. Anything that you wanted to do with Brock Lesnar, you could have done with Bobby Lashley, and no one could tell me any differently. Especially if you have MVP in the corner, and he has a great mic skills, and if he needs to get in the ring, he can do that. He can do everything that Paul Heyman needs and can do. It's just all about the opportunity and making sure the optics make sense. So again, I don't want to get too much into the whole colorism pieces of this, but you need that diversity. And I think you also need to bring down the age in there as well. People are aging out. Bruce Pritchard is not making good suggestions. He actually suggested Pat McAfee go over Gunther. Pat McAfee going over Gunther does not make any sense whatsoever, especially knowing that he just came off a loss from Jey Uso from a sleeper hold and ended up tapping out. You have a credibility issue. I don't know if it's that you made too much money and now it's like, okay, we're just going to write just to get through this Raw, get through the SmackDown, but you got to make sure what you're doing makes sense. If you can make John Cena go all these years without tapping out, and then you're going to build your guy who's supposed to be the ring general, the name is it stands out for itself, and you're going to have him lose to a commentator that has no real in-ring work. It's not about this. You can't just make everything about shock value plus storyline, something that can progress. What happens after that? That would mean that after that, Gunther would have to cook McAfee and pack him up. That means he would have to be done. That's the only way out of that. You can't take him seriously after that. That's why it's so hard for when you get someone in a mid-card position and you drop them on the card, it's very difficult to build them back up like Austin Theory and then try to move things forward. It doesn't make sense. And let's talk about the Seth Rollins and LA Knight situation at Saturday Night's main event. That segment of having Seth Rollins fake his injury for LA Knight to pretty much help sell it. It was a good angle, right? We've already come to terms that he lost at the Money in the Bank. And this would have been probably the second or third time that we were so close to seeing LA Knight do something at Money in the Bank and potentially win and be Mr. Money in the Bank, and they didn't do it. How many times can you have someone who has the charisma like LA Knight, has the fan support, has the merchandise sales, and you don't want to pull the trigger on something like that? They went behind the scenes and they basically showed us what they wanted for him. They had the angle. The angle was already set. They already know that what they want to do with CM Punk. They already know what they want to do with Seth Rollins, right? The whole thing was set up for Seth to win. But at the same time, you are stepping on LA Knight. Let's get into the clip.
Now you have a moment. Holy fuck, LA Knight's got it. He goes up as soon as he gets his hand on it. Seth is back, coming back up.
We talked about yes. Big pull off stomp.
Yeah, something like that, right? Where, like, give me another moment where when it looks like, holy shit, they're both going to go, instead of just LA Knight going off and Seth getting it, it's LA Knight knocks Seth off. Holy shit, he's going to fucking do it. Yay. Boom. Grab him. What the fuck? Pull him down. Boom. He gets on his knees. Stomp. Boom. Fuck you. And Seth.
Copy that.
You know what I mean?
And stuff like this is the reason why people end up being upset and then blaming Triple H and calling him triple fraud. Because he knows for a fact that LA Knight is over. And when someone is over like that, you should push them to the moon. I know there's a lot of comparisons between The Rock and Stone Cold. It doesn't matter. When someone is over, you push them. You push them as far as you can until you can't push them any further. I get it. You're telling me about building stock in a wrestler and, your time will come, but it's been 3 years. You need to be able to know, when to pull the trigger on somebody so that way you can keep your fans engaged. If you wait too long for something, at some point you don't want it. And I don't know if that's the angle he's running. Maybe they have a storyline in mind that they want to keep up with, which I think they only have 2 main storylines that they run with. And then everyone else is just kind of on the back burner. And if they can make it fit, they might accommodate it. But for the most part, they're sticking to their guns. But based on that writing room, their guns they're not loaded. There's nothing happening there. Zero ammunition. They give us one thing and they'll drop the ball on 9 others. You can't, that's not a good evening level feel for you to do anything. You can't just give us 1 or 2 things, drop the ball and everything out and be like, the law of averages. It doesn't work that way. The one thing I could say for Unreal, and again, this is just based on my observation, is when it comes down to the match, the creative team that actually sits down and choreograph the match and sit down and talk about the spots, those guys are spot on. What Michael Hayes is doing, the side he's working with, Jason Jordan, Robert Roode, those guys right there, they understand the matchmaking business. They understand the high spots. They understand how to create the moments in the ring. But when we're talking about segments and how we move from this night to the next night to our pay-per-view, they've lost it. They need to get back to you got to go back to the drawing board and figure it out. I promise you, Triple H would have never been Triple H if nothing happened with his career, if he never moved on. Imagine being white hot and not pulling the trigger on him. I get it. Whole King of the Ring situation got held back as a punishment, but what is the reason why? We sit down, we watch the clip of you having a conversation explaining to LA Knight, yeah, he dropped the ball on that moment. It wasn't exactly where it was, but how many times do you want that man to climb the ladder, literally climb the ladder, and then get an opportunity for the briefcase? LA Knight holding Money in the Bank is literally money, and you guys are dropping $100 bills all over the place. I don't know. That's my opinion on the Unreal season. I want you guys to tap in, let me know what your thoughts are, and tell me if I'm way off on the mark or if I'm making sense here. Peace.